George Wendt, the man behind one of television's most iconic characters, passed away peacefully in his sleep at 76. For those who grew up hearing that thunderous cheer every time he entered the bar on Cheers, the news hit like a gut punch. We didn't just lose an actor, we lost a piece of our collective memory, a symbol of comfort, laughter, and belonging. Today, we remember the man who made us feel at home just by pulling up a stool. The thunderous greeting echoes through Boston's most famous fictional bar as a beloved figure walks through the door. For millions of Americans, that single word represents more than just a character entrance. It symbolizes an era of television that brought comfort, laughter, and a sense of belonging into our living rooms. But yesterday, on May 20th, 2025, we lost the man who made that character an American icon. George Wendt, the actor who brought Norm Peterson to life on Cheers for 11 unforgettable seasons, has passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 76. The news struck the entertainment world like a lightning bolt, with tributes pouring in from Hollywood legends and everyday fans alike. But who was the man behind the bar stool? How did a fired improv actor who once described himself as the worst improviser of all time become one of television's most recognizable and beloved figures? Today, we're diving deep into the extraordinary life of an ordinary guy who made simplicity an art form and turned a supporting role into television immortality. George Wendt's story begins in Chicago in 1948, where he was born into a large family with 8 siblings. Little did anyone know that this unassuming Midwestern boy would one day become a household name, or that his sister Catherine would give birth to another comedy icon, Jason Sudeikis. But George's path to stardom was anything but straightforward. A young man, Wendt seemed destined for an ordinary life. He flunked out of Notre Dame, a fact he later joked about with his characteristic self-deprecating humor, and found himself working at his father's real estate office. It was the classic story of a young man searching for purpose, drifting through his early 20s with no clear direction. Then, in 1974, something changed. Wendt discovered Chicago's legendary comedy institution, the Second City Theater. This renowned comedy training ground has launched some of the greatest comedic talents in American history, from John Belushi and Bill Murray to Tina Fey and Stephen Colbert. But even in this creative crucible, success didn't come easily for Wendt. "I sucked," basically, he once confessed in an interview with the AV Club. "Sucked out loud," I think was the quote. In fact, the Second City fired him once and he quit another time. This brutal honesty about his struggles makes his later success all the more remarkable. But Second City gave George 2 priceless gifts. First, it eventually helped him find his comedic voice not as a rapid-fire improviser, but as a master of deadpan delivery and impeccable timing. And second, it introduced him to Bernadette Burkett, the woman who would become his wife in 1978 and remain by his side for nearly 5 decades. The early 1980s saw Wendt taking small steps into television, with minor roles in shows like Heart, Soap, Taxi, and MASH. He appeared briefly in films like My Bodyguard and Airplane, the sequel. These weren't star-making turns, just a working actor paying his dues, learning his craft, and trying to build a career. In 1982, it seemed like his big break had finally arrived when he was cast in a sitcom called Making the Grade. But the television business can be brutally unpredictable, and the show was canceled after just 6 episodes. What seemed like a career setback, however, would soon reveal itself as the hand of destiny. That same year, NBC launched a new sitcom set in a Boston bar where everybody knows your name. Cheers wasn't an immediate hit. Its first season ratings were so low that cancellation seemed almost certain. But something special was happening in that fictional basement bar, something that would soon captivate America and transform television history. And there, perched on his designated bar stool, was George Wendt as Norm Peterson, the accountant whose entrance always triggered a chorus of his name from the other patrons. Norm wasn't the star of the show, at least not on paper. He wasn't the charismatic bartender, or the neurotic waitress, or the mailman with the outlandish stories. He was just a regular guy who loved beer, avoided his unseen wife Vera, and delivered perfectly timed one-liners. "How's life treating you?" "Norm, like it caught me sleeping with its wife." The simplicity of the character was its genius. As Wendt himself put it, "Norm is just me with better writing." But don't let his modesty fool you. Wendt's impeccable comic timing and authentic everyman quality elevated those lines from clever writing to comedic gold. There's a reason he received 6 Emmy nominations for the role. As Cheers evolved from an underdog to one of television's biggest hits, Norm Peterson became more than just a side character, he became the soul of the show, representing every viewer who's ever sought community and escape in their local gathering place. What viewers couldn't see was the extraordinary bond forming among the cast. Ted Danson, Shelley Long, Rhea Perlman, John Ratzenberger, Kelsey Grammer, Woody Harrelson, and George Wendt became a television family in the truest sense. When the series finally ended its triumphant run in 1993, Bernadette Burkett told People magazine of the cast, "They get along like siblings." To somebody peeking in from the outside, they look like they're having the greatest time in the world. That chemistry wasn't just good television, it was lightning in a bottle. A rare alignment of perfect casting, brilliant writing, and genuine human connection that comes along perhaps once in a generation. While Norm Peterson remained his signature role, Wendt's talents extended far beyond the confines of Cheers. In 1991, he hosted Saturday Night Live and joined the now legendary Bill Swersky's Superfan sketch. If you've ever heard someone say "Da Bears" in that distinctive Chicago accent, you're witnessing George Wendt's cultural impact. The sketch became so popular that Wendt and comedian Robert Smigel would reprise their roles at actual Chicago Bears and Bulls games for decades. Even Michael Jordan couldn't resist joining the fun when he hosted SNL. Once again, Wendt had created a character that transcended its original context to become part of the American lexicon. After Cheers ended, Wendt continued working steadily across television, film, and theater. He tried launching his own sitcom, The George Wendt Show, in 1995, though it lasted just 1 season. "I don't want to be Norm forever," he told the Los Angeles Times, before wryly admitting that his new character was very Norm-like. He made memorable guest appearances on shows like Seinfeld, The Simpsons, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Portlandia. Film audiences spotted him in movies ranging from Fletch to Forever Young to Spice World, and in a delightful twist that suited his jovial persona, he became something of a go-to Santa Claus, playing the role in multiple projects including the musical Elf on Broadway. But stage work became an increasingly important part of Wendt's artistic expression. He tackled challenging roles in regional theater and Broadway productions, including the iconic Edna Turnblad in Hairspray in 2007. For an actor who began his career being fired from an improv theater, these theatrical accomplishments represented a remarkable journey of growth and persistence. One of Wendt's final public appearances came at the 2023 Emmy Awards, where he reunited with his Cheers castmates Ted Danson, Kelsey Grammer, Rhea Perlman, and John Ratzenberger to present an award. The thunderous audience response to seeing these old friends together again demonstrated just how deeply Cheers continues to resonate in our cultural memory. That same year, he surprised audiences by competing on The Masked Singer, proving that even in his mid-70s, George Wendt remained game for new challenges and adventures. This willingness to embrace the unexpected while staying true to himself defined his entire career. When asked for advice for aspiring actors, Wendt's guidance was characteristically straightforward. Have fun. Look, it's brutal out there. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it. This philosophy, prioritizing joy and authenticity over fame or critical acclaim, helps explain why George Wendt remained so beloved throughout his 5-decade career. In an industry often plagued by ego and insecurity, he maintained a grounded perspective and genuine appreciation for his extraordinary good fortune. "I get a lot of free beers," he once told the Washington Post with a chuckle. "It's one of the great perks of employment history. Whenever I go out, people are always sending over a beer or a round for me and my friends." What made George Wendt special wasn't just his talent, though that was considerable, but the unique connection he forged with audiences. When we watched Norm Peterson take his seat at the bar, we weren't just seeing a funny character. We were seeing a reflection of ourselves, our desires for community, acceptance, and a place where everybody knows our name. In today's fractured media landscape, where content is endless but connection often feels elusive, the communal experience that Cheers represented feels increasingly precious. And at the heart of that experience was George Wendt, the everyman who became extraordinary by embracing his ordinariness. George Wendt leaves behind his wife of nearly 5 decades, Bernadette, and their 3 children, Hillary, Joe, and Daniel. His family statement noted that he was a doting family man, a well-loved friend, and confidant to all of those lucky enough to have known him. For a man who played a character famous for avoiding his wife, Wendt's real-life devotion to his family adds another layer of poignancy to his legacy. In his passing, we've lost more than just a talented actor. We've lost a cultural touchstone, a link to an era of television that brought Americans together in shared laughter and recognition. We've lost a man whose humility and humor reminded us that greatness doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it shuffles in quietly, takes a seat at the bar, and orders a beer. So tonight, wherever you are, consider raising a glass to George Wendt, to the laughter he gave us, to the character he immortalized, to the lesson that sometimes our greatest strengths lie not in flashy brilliance, but in authentic connection. Because long after the final credits roll and the last call has been announced, we'll remember the guy who walked into a bar and made himself at home in our hearts. We'll remember the actor who turned a simple greeting into a cultural phenomenon. We'll remember George Wendt, and somewhere in that great bar in the sky, we like to think the regulars are all turning toward the door, smiles spreading across their faces as they call out in perfect unison,